What is up, everyone? Jeremy here. Welcome to my brand new series, In the Mix. This series is going to be focused on everything related to building a great mix. And in this first video, we're going to take a look at how to carve out space for both the kick drum and the bass guitar to occupy the same frequencies without things getting boomy or muddy. So stick around. All right, so just getting right into it, we're gonna jump into the DAW. I'm using Logic here, and the first thing we're gonna do is look at how I utilize Soothe 2 to solve this particular problem of carving out space for the kick and the bass to occupy the same frequencies without things getting muddy or boomy because they both occupy those same kind of sub frequencies, right? So how did I solve it with Soothe 2? Well, the first thing is I tend to duplicate my bass guitar tracks, and I have one as my sub bass and one as, well, everything else, right? From like 300 hertz and up, and then the sub bass is basically like 300 hertz and down. And so soloing that, you can hear this is just the sub bass. There's the sub bass, and then if I solo the other side of that, the 300 hertz and up, that's this. So you can hear there's no low end there, right? So if you put them both together, this is what it sounds like all together. There you go. So you've got the low end bass, but then you've got the top end kind of bite and snarl to it. And this is obviously for a more metal or heavy sound genre, right? So you got that really distorted bass. But the same applies for any genre, right? So bass guitar and a kick occupy the same frequencies. So we need to carve out space for them. And how I solved it here with Soothe 2 is by using a side chain with the kick drum. And so I've already got that set up here. And so you can see in Soothe 2, right up here on the very top right where it says side chain, we can select the individual instrument. And as you can see, I've got my kick selected, right? And so here, where you have the side chain activation, you can also cue the side chain, so you can hear what's coming through and triggering the Soothe 2. So if we do that, I'm going to solo this, and then what you'll hear is the kick drum. So there it is, right? So it's cueing off of the kick drum, and you'll also notice the reduction that Soothe 2 is making here. So you can see the frequencies that it's triggering on is that sub frequency. It's like what, maybe around like 70, 80 hertz and below. You've got kind of that bell there that it's triggering on, and then there's some higher frequencies where you've got that beat or snap against the drum head. So here it is again. You can see those frequencies up there, but mainly it's that low sub frequency, right? And so what's happening here is because that kick drum occupies the same space as our bass, and in fact, I'm going to turn off the side chain, and what you're about to see is Soothe 2 making a reduction in those sub frequencies, just simply based on the settings that I have here right now. So it's trying to make a best guess as to like what harsh frequencies it should remove to kind of carve out space, not using any side chain or anything. And so you can see the frequencies that it's going to be using here. So notice it was kind of carving out the space right around where the kick drum was anyways, which tells us that those are the frequencies that both of the kick drum and the bass are occupying. So we need to make room for both of them in the mix so that things don't get super boomy down that low. So to do that, like I said, you set up the side chain based on the kick. So the input coming into this, the thing that's going to trigger the gain or the gain reduction in those frequencies in this plugin is going to be the kick drum based on the frequencies that the kick drum occupies. And so because I only have this low Q here, the frequency at I'm at like 571 hertz, and I've got the sensitivity up to 5.2. I've got the Q at 0.8, and you balance even, so you can see all the settings there. And so I've got this at 571 hertz and below. So anything above that, it's not doing anything anyways. So this, having turned on the side chain now, when this triggers, it's actually going to cut back those frequencies, those low sub frequencies of my bass, and based on the frequency that the kick is utilizing. So here this is, you can see this happening right now. So there it is. And it's kind of a subtle thing, but I'm going to go ahead and increase the depth here so that you can really start to hear those sub frequencies drop out of the bass. You hear that? I had to crank it up on hard to really get it to drop. I guess I could probably pull the Q up as well, but you heard it. It was dropping those sub frequencies out of this of the bass based on the same frequencies that the kick drum is using. So I'm going to pull this back to about where it was. Something about like that. And so now if I go ahead and I'll solo my kick drum here so you can actually hear when that's hitting. These are now going to sit better in this mix because we're not going to get super boomy because they're both occupying those same sub frequencies. And this is what it sounds like. There it is. So here is an example of the full mix. So there we go. Now we've got our bass and our kick coming through. You can hear them both really well, but we're not getting super boomy on the low end because they're both hitting those same sub frequencies. So how else could you solve this problem if, say, you don't have Soothe 2? Well, there's a couple other plugins that offer similar, almost identical, in fact, features. And so the first one is TB Pro Audio DS-EQ2, and this works very similar to Soothe 2. In fact, if I read this, it says, DS-EQ is a dynamic processor working in the frequency domain, removing digital harshness on the fly thanks to self-adjusting frequency bands, very much like Soothe 2. So you can do the same thing here with DS-EQ2, as well as probably the most popular in this realm of carving out frequencies is Waves Factory Track Spacer. So this just kind of does the same thing. All right, so now that we've looked at a few plugins that are really kind of like the best way, in my opinion, in carving out space in isolated frequencies that, you know, two different instruments are occupying, there is an additional way that you can do this. And so, like I said before at the beginning of the video, I tend to duplicate my bass track so that I have 300 hertz and up on one and 300 hertz below on the other. So what you could do if you don't have Soothe 2 or one of these other plugins is simply add a compressor to your sub bass. And then on there, you're going to trigger, let me find an instrument kick. You're going to set up a side chain, just as I did here, on the kick again. And then in this case, what you're going to do is just kind of try to get around maybe 2-ish decibels of gain reduction. So you're not doing a ton, because this is about what you saw in Soothe 2, but maybe 2 to 3 decibels of gain reduction here. And what will happen here is it's kind of very similar. It's across the entire frequency spectrum. It's in the entire level of your sub bass versus just the specific frequencies that your kick is using. But this is the kind of the next best thing that you could do without affecting kind of the higher end frequencies of your bass. You're not pulling down your entire bass. It's just that sub bass, which is more of the frequencies that are going to get boomy because it's sharing the same frequencies of the kick. So let me dial this in here real quick. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that far off even from the get-go. So, I mean, we're getting around 2 to 3-ish decibels of gain reduction here on this DI bass track. So if we solo it, we should be able to hear a little bit of that volume coming back when the kick hits. All right, so we'll go ahead and turn off the auto gain here, and I'm just gonna kind of really crank things up so you can really hear the gain reduction happening when that kick hits. So this is what it sounds like. You saw that hit in there where the kick didn't trigger any gain reduction here. So this is working, and obviously you don't want this the gain reduction too heavy, because then you kind of get that. You can hear that kind of like pumping effect. So like I said, looking for 2 to 3 decibels of gain reduction here. Something right about there. So this is kind of like your next best way of pulling back some of those sub frequencies without having something like Soothe 2 to kind of really hone in on the specific exact frequencies that your sidechain trigger, in this case a kick, is occupying. All right, everyone, that's going to be a wrap on this first video in the mix series. I hope you like this content. I've got a lot more things lined up for this series. I'm pretty excited about it. I hope you are too. If you are and you are not subscribed to my channel, please consider subscribing. That subscribe button is right down below. Hit the bell so you're notified when I upload those new videos. Hit me in the comments. Let me know your thoughts on this content. Hit like and share. And as always, thank you for watching and thank you for your support.